DirtTrax is sponsored by Can-Am, the ride says it all. Polaris, the hardest working, smoothest riding off-road vehicles. Hatfield McCoy Trails, where hundreds of miles of off-road adventure await you today. And by Yamaha, conquer outdoors.
Earlier this season, I was at Brimstone's White Knuckle event with my brother and some friends, and we competed in the events there and had a great time. And on my way home, I stopped for a second and I thought about it, and I realized that I haven't been to Brimstone just to ride their trails in nearly 5 years. The Brimstone Trail System is located right in the town of Huntsville, Tennessee. You drive into Huntsville and you get this really small town feel, and when you're driving through the main street, you're thinking to yourself, I'm a long way from any kind of amenity. But the truth of the matter is, Brimstone and the town of Huntsville are actually in very close proximity to all the things that you could possibly want for a week traveling and riding ATVs.
I've been to Brimstone one other time, and it was with an intro to the Kawasaki Trax 4, and we just did a short ride, so I really hadn't experienced Brimstone as it's meant to be experienced.
One of the things I like a lot about riding the Brimstone trails is that you're not pigeonholed into any one type of accommodation. There's literally every type of accommodation you could want while you're here to suit any type of riding group or riding situation. Something Brimstone has done that I think is really, really smart is they've combined all the different mom and pops, rental units and cabins and campgrounds into one central location for you. Go on their website, you can check out what's available, find out the prices, and book it right there. The one we stayed at, the luxury cabin, was one of the nicest cabins I've ever stayed.
We've been many places where we've seen different types of accommodations, and I think Brimstone does a good job at giving the overall package for accommodations. You can be a camper, or you can rent these cottages that are on site and chalets, and they're wonderful.
Sweet. That's pretty impressive.
It is.
Before we went riding, we met up with our main contact guy here at Brimstone, Mark Love, and I've worked with Mark on many occasions. AJ went to Alaska with Mark and his crew a few seasons ago, and that was quite an adventure. And Mark is the guy. He knows everything about Brimstone. He's super involved in Brimstone, and he's the guy who's going to show us around, show us the trails, take us to all the best spots, and basically take care of us while we're here.
Howdy, gentlemen.
Hey, how's it going?
Mark.
Howdy, that's a proper name for here.
Yeah. You bet.
The trails that we have at Brimstone are basically about 300 miles in total. We have a wide variety of trails, from anything from the easiest trails for families and the beginners to the most challenging trails.
Well, you know, Brimstone is gaining quite a reputation for a really hardcore place, and also a good family place to ride. And I really wanted to see it firsthand and experience riding the miles of trails and getting back off some of the beaten path trails, which we did when we were here. And I'll tell you, it was quite an experience.
To experience wide open vistas with large hardwood stands, as well as you know, sort of like a Smoky Mountain feel, because we have such a great viewscape here, and it's tremendous.
My ride at Brimstone, I'll take home a lot of memories, and the biggest memory I'm going to have of Brimstone truly is the Smoky Mountains and the scenery, and the vistas and the views that we saw. And it's beautiful country. It really is. I mean, it was amazing to stand up on some of those hilltops and see the views of the Smoky Mountains, the fog off in the distance, and you know, it was really an experience that I'll remember for a long time.
There are a few things every riding area absolutely must have before I would consider it to be welcoming to new riders, and Brimstone has them all. First of all, you got to have great mapping. Without great mapping, a rider who shows up who's never ridden there before has no idea where to go or how to get to the places they want to get to. And something that goes along with mapping and is equally as important is great signage. You can have great maps, but if you don't have great signs to indicate where you are on the map, you're just as lost as you were with no map. Great trail maintenance is very important. I really don't like going to riding areas that are beat to crap. I don't like it. I think that if you're going to charge somebody to ride in an area, you should spend some of that money to take care of the riding area. And Brimstone does a great job of this. They're out on the trail, working on the trails every day, bulldozing and cutting and fixing spots that have been messed up. And these are all aspects of a great riding area, and Brimstone has them all. The trails at Brimstone are more technical than pretty much any other place I've been to. We still managed to find an extra technical spot. Mark took us to this one trail. It was so tight, the Wildcat would barely fit through the trees, and I was rubbing the fenders on trees and doing three-point turns. And then we come up to this spot on the trail, and I would have to say it's one of the more unique natural land formations that I've really ever seen on an ATV trail.
Okay guys, like, you know, basically this bridge was here when we got here, and we just built the trail up to the top of the mountain. It's pretty narrow, and you're gonna have a difficult time getting that Wildcat across through here.
You think John should be the one to drive it across?
Yeah, I really do. I think
Well,
John's the guy.
I'll tell you what, Luke, I might have tried it 10 years ago, but you're on your own on this one, man. It's just, I'm just not gonna do it. Nope.
Okay.
I think I have the skill, I just don't have the nerve anymore.
Those
what's
two
up
things
with-
are connected, you know.
Yeah, I know, but it is what it is.
And the guys who were there kind of took a look at the side-by-side and a look at the bridge, and were pretty convinced it couldn't be done. And my nature is to say, yes, it can be done, and do it whether it can be or not, and find out the consequences after. So we figured we'd do the bridge.
John wouldn't do it. Whatever.
Now, that's not the end of the story, because once you cross the bridge, you've got this gnarly rock garden that you have to get through, and it's rough. It was a tough climb out, so you had to cross the bridge, and then you had to climb out of the rocks. And you know, the Wildcat's a great rock crawler, it's a great vehicle, it's awesome in the rocks, in the rough stuff, but step one was to get across that bridge, and everybody was pretty convinced it wasn't gonna happen. We got her done.
It was just more than I couldn't expect running a side-by-side through the terrain that we did yesterday. It was really, really rough and gnarly.
When I think about taking a week's vacation to go ride ATVs, I often think to myself, I love riding ATVs, but even 5 days of just riding ATVs might get a little tiring, and I might get a little bored. That's why I think it's really important when you go to an area to ride ATVs, specifically an area like Huntsville and the trails at Brimstone, it's really good to look into what else you can do there. In this case, we talked to Mark about what we could do and what he likes to do in the area, and he brought up fishing in the river.
Part of our visit to Brimstone included a morning of fishing. And we were told we'd be fishing for muskie. And I thought, well, I can win this one. And I was looking forward to it. And after the trimming I got on our day of riding the day before, I thought, this is where I'm going to excel. And, you know, we're going to hand his butt to him on the platter when it comes to boat and fish.
So we embarked out on this adventure to fish in the river, and Mark had promised us muskie and largemouth bass and pickerel, and he said there was tons of them in there. So I was expecting a real fishing adventure, and it didn't really turn out the way we thought it would. I know that John really wanted to show me up, but he didn't catch anything either, so that didn't happen.
But you know what? That's fishing, and that was a first-time experience for Luke. And you know, we had a good time, and that's what it's all about. And I think that he enjoys experience, and I enjoyed spending time with him in the boat. We had a good time. That's what it was all about.
I find that no matter where I go, I always take something home with me from a trip. At Brimstone, I definitely took a few thoughts home with me. The first one I took home with me is that fishing is a sport of patience, that's for sure, and I don't have much, so it's not really for me. But I also took home with me that ATVing is way more fun when you're at a place that caters to ATVers, to real ATVers, a place that understands the real ATV enthusiast and has and provides what the real ATV enthusiast will need and want. And Brimstone does that. I think the mark of a really good riding destination is one that leaves you feeling like you still want more as you're leaving, like you want to return. And I can honestly say I want to go back to Brimstone and I want to ride more. I think that's a good endorsement. Technology is always progressing. Faster, flashier, more impressive equipment replaces previous generations so quickly, it's become almost impossible to keep up. We're told that because the new model is better, the old one is no longer valid. Today, this phenomenon has, once again, hit Polaris RZR XP buyers square in the head. I've tested the RZR XP more than once, and I really like it. I've always given it great reviews because I really do believe it's an excellent machine with a long list of pluses and only a few minor negatives. But in the wake of Polaris's RZR 1000 XP release earlier this year, the question on most people's minds, including my own, is simply this. Is the RZR XP900 still good enough to stand on its own? Or will it become a blur in the background of the 1000? So let's take a look at what the XP900 is and see whether or not it has a place in Polaris's RZR lineup. Before the RZR XP, the highest performance pure sport side-by-side on the market was Polaris's RZR S 800, which was doing the job just fine, or so we thought. The truth is, the base RZR platform was simply being used as a donor chassis and motor for an endless list of upgrades and modifications needed to take the sport side-by-side to the next level of performance. Polaris took one look at this situation and immediately realized the huge market potential for a vehicle that already had all these upgrades right from the factory. More horsepower, more travel, and more width for what was needed. The RZR XP900 was what we got. From the very first time I mashed the throttle to the floor in the XP900, I was impressed. The 900 Twin produces 88 ponies and, in a vehicle that is, by today's standards, fairly small, it feels snappy and fast. When pitted against even the Wildcat X and Maverick this past season, it managed to hold its own in the power department, if only by the tips of its fingernails. 14 inches of travel from its front AA arms and 3-link trailing arm rear suspension system were, for the longest time, the longest travel you could get. The Wildcat changed all that by offering 18 inches of front and rear travel, but today, even the innovative Maverick doesn't have more than 14. When it comes to travel, what's the one thing that's more important than length? Easy, quality. 14 inches of well-controlled and predictable travel is better than 20 inches of crap. For some reason, when the Maverick and Wildcat hit the scene, the world seemed to assume the XP900 suspension was, all of a sudden, not good enough. This couldn't be more wrong. The XP900 is, in 2013, the second best riding pure sport side-by-side. Is it as good as the new 1000? No, but that certainly doesn't mean it's not good. Ergonomically speaking, all 2013 RZRs are based on the same cockpit and are all on the small side. Legroom is tight, seats are close together. There's just not a lot of space in here. However, the seats are decent and the seating position is very good. Riding alone feels totally livable, and the only time riding with a passenger gets uncomfortable is when your passenger is abnormally large. Our RZR XP is an LE model, which simply means it has flashy graphics, stitched seats, cool aluminum wheels, and of course, power steering. But the power steering system on this model is just odd. The truth is, of all pure sport side-by-side models on the market, the RZR XP900 needed power steering the least. It actually steers fine without it, but having power steering is always a bonus, unless it works like this system does. Too much assist gives a vague feeling and it makes it very difficult to find center with the wheels when you want to go straight. Sure, steering is ultra light, but the dynamic nature of this system is not aggressive enough. 64 inches is an industry standard width for pure sport side-by-sides, so stability is not an issue. Keep in mind, the RZR 900 is very short compared to the Wildcat, Maverick, and even the new RZR 1000. This makes it a far better choice for tight situations where quick handling is an advantage. And this brings us back to my original question. Does this vehicle still belong in Polaris's RZR lineup? The answer, in my opinion, is a simple matter of value. There's no question that these days, pure sport side-by-sides are not getting any cheaper. In 2014, the RZR XP900 retails for about $4,000 less than the 1000 and is substantially less than the Wildcat X or Maverick XRS, so the answer is easy. While the RZR 1000 is better in 99% of situations, the 900 is an excellent value for this class of vehicle. We think it absolutely deserves to stick around. It's still competitive, it's highly upgradable, and it actually has an edge in tight spaces. For the money, it gives people who can't afford the newest, flashiest models a completely respectable and quite impressive way to enter the pure sport market. Whether it sticks around or not, we feel the 2013 RZR 900 XP offers an excellent balance of power, handling, and ride. Space inside is a little tight, but is forgivable in light of its perfectly tuned suspension. With a little less assist from its EPS, the XP900 would give us nearly nothing to complain about. Take into consideration its lowest in class MSRP for 2014, and this RZR gets a very favorable recommendation.
Over the years, we've shown you many different products and systems for both tying down and transporting your ATV or side-by-side. Today, I'm going to show you something from a company that takes thinking outside the box to a whole new level. The Superclamp ATV and side-by-side tie-down system is sold factory direct for $4.99 and is comprised of a fixed and adjustable brace that holds the vehicle in place. Rated with a working load limit of 1,800 pounds, it uses no straps, no ratchets, and no loops or buckles to accomplish what typically takes 4 separate tie-downs. And with Superclamp, it literally takes seconds to secure your ATV or side-by-side. Now the first step to the process is fitment. The Superclamp system does have to be installed onto your truck deck or trailer prior to use, so it makes it a great choice for those with single or double placed trailers. Installation is made simple by first mounting the base plates onto your truck deck or trailer, and then locking the front wheel chocks into place. After this, set the height of the tire bar to match the profile height of the wheel. With the front wheel chocks mounted, you're now ready to fit the rear clamps in place. Installation for the rear of the vehicle is just as simple. You mount this bar in line with the rear tires, spaced appropriately according to the instructions. Then you take this large clamping bar, slide it into the base, and then adjust for tire height. After you've done this, you never have to adjust again for the same vehicle. As if the installation wasn't easy enough, the loading process gets even better. Drive up on the front wheel chocks, put your ATV or side-by-side into park, and then clamp the rear tires into place. Thanks to a simple hand lock, anyone can do it, and it takes minimal effort. With a padlockable rear clamp, you can also add security to the system, something you're hard-pressed to do with a conventional tie-down. After spending some time installing the Superclamp system, I realized that there's a lot of things to like about it. It's quick and it's super versatile with easy adjustability for your ATV or side-by-side. If you're tired of traditional tie-downs, it might be time for you to go Superclamp.
DirtTrax television has been sponsored by Polaris, the hardest working, smoothest riding off-road vehicles. Can-Am, the ride says it all. MBRP Performance Exhaust, making power with MBRP. And by Arctic Cat, share our passion.